The big questions that the BFSI CXOs are discussing now are how to multiply the various layers of digital in day-to-day services. The focus on interoperability, omnichannel, and usage of middleware has increased for greater agility. Next session is on the topic BFSI CXOs, multiplying digital in the new era. The session will discuss, in the world of innovation where app is rampant with the Google Assistant, how are CXOs engaging with the digital and multiplying and boosting the BFSI? I would like to invite Amol Dethe, editor ETBFSI, to moderate this discussion. Over to you, Amol.
Hello and welcome to ETBFSI CXO Conclave. This is the second conclave, and this particular panel discussion is about multiplying digital in the new era. We all understand the importance of the digital, and most of the BFSI companies have adopted digital. But in this particular panel discussion, we are going to understand from the veteran bankers and the experts from the BFSI industry, how are they actually multiplying the usage of digital in the new era. And I have with me the four gentlemen to discuss in detail about this topic. My first speaker today is Mr. Suresh Sankaranarayanan, EVP and CTO, Kotak Mahindra General Insurance. Suresh, welcome on the show.
Thank you. And welcome
My
to
next
all
speaker
my
is
friends.
Mr. Murali Mohan Rao Manduva, CTO, DCB Bank. Murali, welcome to the show. My next speaker is Mr. Ravi Shankar, SVP and CMO, Denodo. Ravi, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Amol.
And my last speaker is Mr. Amit Saxena, Global Deputy CTO, State Bank of India. Amit, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To begin with, I will, give 1 or 2 minutes to each one of you to talk about the topic, which is multiplying digital in the new era. And maybe you can share your opening remarks, considering how you have been in last 7-8 months, how did you adopt digital and how do you see the future of digital and how are you multiplying it? So, Amit, if you could begin with, how are you multiplying and leveraging the digital in your organization?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amol, for your question. And the digital journey of State Bank of India started like a couple of years earlier, and we have gone way ahead with respect to the digital transformation itself. What we have done, we have built in a full digital bank itself, what we call as Zono. You only need one. That was done on 24th November 2017 was the time when we have launched it. It has been 3 years. It has been going great itself. It has been, kind of independently evaluated at $40 billion of, kind of a market cap, what has been told to us. But what we are looking forward to, this was only a start, and there was no pandemic at that time. But what we are trying to do now, we are going to transform the whole digital experience of our customer. We are going to build journeys which are going to work in a manner wherein, so we already have an account wherein you do not need to go to a branch to open an account. You can already do a payment. The latest one, what we have done is on an ATM, you do not need to switch, touch that, keyboard to take out the money. You can stage that onto your Yono app and then go and scan it on the QR code, which is coming on ATM screen, and you can do it. Having said that, that is not something what we are saying. These are the basics which every bank should have provided long time back itself. We are talking of a journey wherein we are saying change the experience kind of a thing. This is a world of instant gratification now. People want to achieve as soon as they have thought about it, right? So the experience from new fintechs like Zomato, etc., wherein you can order food as and when you want. The banking services we are going to provide you as and when you require them. And we are starting from some of the loan journey. So we have done a loan journey which is called a pre-approved personal loan. You get a notification on a Yono app. You click onto that notification, you get an OTP, and voila, you would get that money in next 30 seconds into your account itself. That's what we are talking of. We are going to change that loan space. And we are not only talking of a retail customer, because after this pandemic, we have to see how the SME customer are going to work. We cater to every kind of a customer in the country itself, right? We have got 761 million accounts, 450 million customers. So what we are trying to do, we are much more focused onto the loan segment for our SME customer. And thank you very much for your question. I will touch upon these points as we move forward. Thank you, Amol.
Okay, thanks, Amit. Obviously, we'll go into details and ask some specific questions. But Suresh, if I come to you and if you could tell me how at your company, specifically the insurance business, trying to multiply the usage of digital.
Yeah. So see, what happens is we all, as Amit rightly said, no, we all have been talking digital for many, many years. What we, however, done is we've now undertaken a theme which is known as digital by default, which essentially means that for everything that we do in the organization and that exists as well, which we revisit, we are going to see whether we can do it end-to-end digital. And of course, we appreciate that there will be a certain percentage of the business traffic that will not fall in the digital journey. But that is something which we will now build as a second step. If I were to recall journeys 5 years back and 10 years back, it used to be exactly the reverse. People used to make normal journeys and digital used to be an add-on, at least in the insurance space. What we've done is we're completely saying that at a thought level, we've said digital by default is our motto, right? Then if I look at processes, and I'll come to products in the last, right? We've been talking in the insurance spectrum, specifically in our organization, of now trying to take this processes like claim adjudication, which is where the customer connects maximum with an insurance company, using AI, so you could automate it, right? So essentially, you are not wasting time talking to people. It's a completely AI-driven system, right? We're talking of moving fraud detection and monitoring to, again, the AI platforms, right? We're talking of retail underwriting to moving on the AI platform. So these are some of the initiatives that we started on, because we think that in the digital era and post-pandemic also, when some normalcy will remain, we will not go back to that old normal. We'll actually have a new normal, which might be a mix of more digital transactions than actually physical transactions. Coming to the products, what we've started seeing is that there is a marked interest in customers to buy insurance for specific targeted problems for a specific targeted period, which actually we could classify as sachet insurance or small ticket insurance, which is how the customers are showing a marked preference to. So I can give an example. Of course, this has also been guided by RDA itself, who's our regulator, saying that, for example, in the period of Corona, you have to give a Corona cover insurance, which will probably run for only 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, right? So you see, that's how the nature of insurance has undergone a change from long-term to extremely short-term contracts. And I think those are the things that we are doing around the digital space in our organization.
I think that's quite interesting, Suresh. And yes, we have seen a good uptake for this, Corona Suraksha and Corona, Kavach policies, which, I already asked all the insurance companies to, issue. I think quite interesting. Ravi, I will bring you here, and if you could offer a tech perspective, how do you see the BFSI companies, multiplying digital usage?
Definitely, Amol. So, I will kind of explain from a couple of different angles. One of them, as a vendor in the technology space, we have many customers who are in the BFI space around the world. Given the pandemic, one of our customers here in the United States, they were put in charge of providing what we call as the PPP plan, the government rolled out payment protection plan, in which small and medium businesses could keep their lights on if they're able to retain their employees. So the government actually dispersed the money through the banks, and the banks had to very quickly set it up within a week or two to be able to, one, collect the information from the small and medium businesses, assess whether they are actually retaining their employees, and then the third one is to provide the money as quickly as possible without any room for fraud. So they had to multiply their ability to offer these digital capabilities on top of everything else that they do. The other one is, like, if you look at, given the current pandemic situation in the United States, many of the customers like you and I are kind of looking at or demanding touchless payments. So when they go into a store, they are, of course, all wear masks. They don't want to be using the terminal to input their credit card or provide any payment through cash. They want to be able to use their mobile to actually pay right then and there without having to touch any of the terminals. So coming to Indian market, Forrester Research, which is one of the analyst firms, they actually did a survey of their clients, and they found 94% of the users in the metro Indian market are using digital payment methods to purchase products and services, and they have done so in the past 3 months. So if you look at the payment service providers, Paytm and Amazon Pay are the leading service providers right now in India. So I would say that BFSI companies need to innovate to cater to the customers, to be able to be very flexible along these terms, for which they need a future-proof technology architecture, which I will discuss more later on.
Thanks, Ravi, for that note. And Murali, I will come to you, and I would like to have your views also in terms of how are you multiplying the usage of digital at your bank.
One, the way that the pandemic has changed the scenario. So we were actually looking at our digital journey over a period of certain time, but the COVID and the associated situations have really amplified this journey. I mean, rather it has got advanced and it has got crunched into a much shorter duration. So from our bank perspective, so what we were doing is, earlier the focus was only on a millennials in terms of digital journey. So that's now getting extended to every respect to the customers, with respect to our SMEs, with respect to our internal customers. So there are various initiatives that were taken in terms of leveraging and implementing the digital initiatives, cutting across products, services, and infrastructure. Because digital journey has got has got 3-4 key items which will help us in getting that acceleration and a multiplier effect. So for example, we have brought in something called a DCB remit, which is a self-service journey for any of the remittances, for any customer who can take the remittances. It's basically a deposit journey. And again, this is a touchless and a contactless journey, completely digitized end to end. So there are different initiatives that we are taking in terms of each of the, to address each of the business and also each of the customer services, because analysis that to be done for us to service the customers, because we are removing that the brick and mortar and a direct communication with the customer. So these are the key areas that we are actually working on, and I would we would possibly discuss more in detail when we are getting into the discussion.
Right, Murali. In fact, I think quite a few learnings from your opening marks as well. But if I go specifically now, I mean, there is no BFSI company which is not talking about digital. Everybody has something. Maybe SBI will have more than the others, and others will also have something in their bouquet already. So Amit, I will come back to you specifically, and if you could give me some specific information about interoperability, middleware, how these things are actually helping you to reach to a next level, because we already have one level of digital now, and whole question and the whole idea is how can you scale it up and reach to a next level.
Right, and Amol, this is something which is being discussed at all levels itself. So what we have done, we have got a so we have got systems which were talking to each other without a few years earlier, right? In 2015-16, when there was no middleware and the interoperability was no longer there. So what we have understand, and this I would talk it from a future perspective, how the BFSI have to change. And if you see the payment space which have undergone a full transformation with the new players coming into picture. Now you have got another new player who have come into a payment space. What every bank have to understand, if we are not going to build in a system which are plug and play, and wherein you are not able to build in your API structure in a manner that we should be able to use them first of all with full scalability as and when they are needed. I will give you an example of an API which is called balance inquiry. Now the culture of India is, if I am trying to transfer a money, I would log in into a banking application, check what is my balance. Then I will transfer the money to Amol. Then what I would do, I would check the balance one more time. So for every transaction, there is 3 balance inquiry calls, right? So if you are not going to build in a balance inquiry, or not going to give a balance inquiry a path, which is different from a fund transfer path, you would see that your system would start choking up. So therein comes in a concept of a spin wheel kind of implementation of your API architecture itself. And what we are talking of, we have built it. We are now going a step ahead. We have got an internal cloud structure in place, and we are looking at how well we are able to provide. And we are a big supporter for open banking architectures. And what we are saying that we are ready to open up our bank, wherein once the account aggregator kind of a thing would be made available to all the banking space, then you should be able to get the information from State Bank of India, and you would be able to share your information with the State Bank of India. And for that purpose, we have built in that architecture, give or take another 2 quarters, that should be ready. And I believe that would be a way forward for all banks. It's going to be interoperability. You cannot remain big into a silo itself, right? You have to collaborate to grow. And when SBI come into that space, you would see we do not compete, right? Being the largest bank, but what we do, we increase the participation in that particular segment itself. So if we get into a particular segment, like a loan, gold loan, kind of a segment, that segment grow by 10,000 crore rupees because SBI is a player now, right? So we increase it. So the same thing we are trying to do it for interoperability in the banking system. Thank you very much, Amol.
So if I can add,
yes, Murali, go ahead.
If I can add, Amol, and just to extend Amit's thought, singleton or the systems which are very closed in nature, then we have started working on having interoperability extended to the systems within the bank, right? Now the consumers of the services are not only within the systems within the bank, right? There are fintech partners, there are payment banks, there are so many other services which actually consumes the banking services. So that actually brings up, the next level of a evaluation in terms of our ability, in the sense the individual banks' ability to expose these services to be consumed by, payment banks, etc. So that to meet those minimum requirements, the interoperability and the middleware becomes the heart of it, and the API banking is helping us in getting us there.
From a technology provider, I can probably add to the middleware discussions. Sure. Amit threw out some of the important words like plug and play, cloud, and cannot be a silo. So if you look at the technology capability within BFSI companies, you will see like middleware is becoming a very important intermediary layer to aggregate all the data related to the products and services that they offer from a digital perspective, and then deliver it to the business users or the consumers at the top layer. So one of the concepts that being thrown out, and it was actually called out as a trend by Gartner Research for 2020, is this notion of a logical data fabric. So it's no longer possible to have all the data collected into a central repository. So they're advocating something like, leave the data wherever it is, and you connect to the data where it is available, and virtually integrate that information and make that available to the consumers, whatever services that they're using through whatever methods that they are using. And in fact, Gartner is projecting that 60% of the organizations will be using this concept of the logical data fabric by 2022. So that way you get rid of the silos that Amit kind of talked about. You're able to integrate the data, whether it is on the cloud, whether it is on premises, and provide a cohesive view of this information to your consumers.
I think quite interesting, Ravi. In fact, Amit spoke about open API, then Murali also added to interoperability and your views on the middleware. I think, whole banking is heading towards a different league altogether. Suresh, considering all these technologies, and in fact, Ravi, I will come back to you specifically on the data. But, Suresh, if you could tell me more on how the insurance companies are now trying to create a value proposition, because insurance was still, and I think for some time it will be, a communication business. The agent will go, convince the customer, then they sell the policy. It's still a push product. So how are you actually trying to create a value proposition for a customer by using all these digital tools?
The answer to this is a very classical old school answer, right? Everything that we do in terms of value prop has to result in 2 or 3 things. It has to either reduce cost for the customer. It has to give him a fantastic experience. It has to reduce time that he's sending in. Today, if I tell you 15 years back, getting an insurance policy would have been a 1-month affair. Today, the expectation is a real time done. I don't think there's any company in the world which exists which says that I will give it to you after 15 days. It happens. there is no way you can survive, right? So the value prop is pillared around these 3 or 4, I would say, ideas. So whatever you do, whatever we do at all points of time is this, right? For example, I'll also answer to the first one when we spoke about interoperability. While open insurance is many years away from the Indian market, at least on the insurance space, not for the banking space though, what we see is emerges that there will be the rise of digital aggregators, people who control a lot of information of the customers and will position the right products depending on either the customer behavior or the customer need, right? And so it would be like there could be an app which the customer is using, which could be a banking app or a e-commerce app or whatever the customer is more comfortable with, which is like a mother of all apps. And he will be pitched the right products, which will be essentially a gap in his insurance cover or a requirement that he's going to get into. And we have to complete that by that settlement of the claim, whichever is the process which is started on that app in real time. I think that's where I think the value proposition lies, and that's where all insurance companies, including ours, is moving to. Right? There are companies in the US, insurance companies in the US, which speak about settling the claim within minutes. Right? There are insurance companies who are experimenting with to see, can we do that for the low value claims to begin with, and once the processes mature, move to higher value claims. So I think those are the value propositions that are emerging on the table for the customer. And I think it will be no different than buying something from one of the e-com sites. You buy today, it will get delivered in next 4 hours. You will be happy about it. I think that's exactly how the whole thing is moving towards.
I agree with you, Suresh. In fact, the 2 minutes and 1 minute thing that you spoke about is, in fact, that US company Lemonade, which is an insurtech company. Absolutely. I was very impressed when they said that we issue policies in 30 seconds and settle the claims in 3 minutes. And that website is also very, very attractive. The UI and UX kind of things.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's quite interesting. So Amit, I will bring you here.
So we were looking at a model where we do a buy journey, right? Today on the customer website, where customer moves from one page to another to second page. I mean, that's one, but probably the world is moving to a conversational purchase, right? Exactly. Where we come onto a chat, we say, what's your name, what's your vehicle, or 2 questions on the chat, and boom, the policy comes out, right?
Yes.
So from having a beautiful journey to a great app, it's about having a conversational purchase. It's like talking to a human being and completing the purchase. So true. I think the world is rapidly moved to that space. Not many players in our country who do it currently, but I think it's only a matter of a few quarters and you will start seeing a lot of this happening even in Indian space.
Yeah, maybe you will ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, renew my insurance policy, and it will be done.
Yeah. Someone has tried that though in the Indian industry. I must tell you that some people have tried Alexa insurance in the Indian market.
Okay. Amit, I will continue the same, conversation in the banking space. You're trying to put everything on SBI YONO. Obviously, already SBI YONO is serving and catering to a lot of customers, new customers have been adding. But when you're trying to create one app, which is the mother of all the apps, do you think that the engagement level really goes up rather than it's making actually a confusion with the customers, because one app has so many things that perhaps customers will get confused. Where should I go?
So let me, Amol, tell it. And we do not even call YONO as an app itself. We call it as a platform. For us, it's a service provider. For, as somebody else have said, that you would be having a lot of aggregators. We have got 5 JVs itself, right? So we have got a life credit card division, which are all different companies. The mutual fund and SBI Cap, etc., which are all integrated in YONO. You can do everything by doing a single, kind of a login onto a YONO. We are going a way ahead. We are not saying YONO is an app. We are saying YONO is a platform, and that's where we are talking of open banking integration. Trying to integrate. It has got how many? It has got around 2,000 merchants integrated. Right? You can buy your insurance. You can buy mutual fund, which is our services. But you can buy airplane ticket, you can book hotels, and there are deals which you would only get. Even you can book a car itself, right? So if you want to buy a new car, you don't need to pay any money as a service charge if you are using YONO, right? That's a kind of a features what we are saying is, when it comes from a tech perspective, we are saying that we would open up this space wherein we should have an integration only for, like Amol, you are a food connoisseur. You want only food kind of a stuff to be made available on my platform, I don't care. My life is happy. You are all well, all set, and you only want to explore what are the. So the platform gives you an option only to select only the food kind of integration, or the news about the podcast about the food, which is happening. What's a new trend? The same goes for fashion, right? People who are, or you come in from a news background, you want to know what's going around in the news section, right? Integration we are talking of, and you would see as and when we go forward, and this is what we are planning, that going forward in 2 quarters time, we will give an aggregation of aggregators onto this platform. I can say this much as of today.
Okay, I think quite interesting and a very supportive views, Amit. I can see that in fact banks are now talking about BaaS, banking as a service, offering platform to many other players. I think quite interesting. What is your view, Murali, here? How are you, multiplying in terms of offering different platforms, different services? Because now the banks are also partnering with a lot of e-commerce players, and as many partners as possible, starting from fintechs to insurtechs.
I mean, there is always a view saying, can we have everything, all eggs in one basket, or can we have different, for a targeted segment, From our perspective, I think the way that we are working towards is, one, we are trying to create that the platform where we offer different services, right? And some of those services are going to be offered by us using our own platform or our own apps, etc. But most of the things, because most of the things are going to be offered in conjunction with other fintech partners. So we are doing multiple discussions, because there are already available products, or the fintechs who have matured in specific set of activities, banking or a conversational integration with IoTs. So these are, there are already fintech players that are available who have got a matured products in these lines of services. So we are not looking at reinventing the wheel over there, but what we are trying to do over with those fintech partners is provide the platform where they can integrate these services and extend the services to our customers. Things in terms of multiplying the digital journey for us. One, getting the services more available for consumption. That's bringing the middle layer appropriately built over there. Second, we are also looking at getting our infrastructure in terms of our ability to upscale and upscale for the consumption by the kind of volumes that we look at. But if as Amit was saying, if you look at when you are doing a digital journey, the number of times a balance inquiry for taking one use case, it gets hit your core banking system is, I guess if I'm right, it's about 10x. If you have a financial transaction of X, then 10x is the times of which an inquiry actually hits your core banking platform. So right. that's the capability that we have to bring in, because when you are doing a digital journey and when you are actually offering services over digital mode, the biggest part of it is, one, how fast you are able to service the customer, because the customers have got multiple options, right?
Right.
So you need to have your UI UX appropriately built and ease for use. At the same time, the turnaround, the response time will have to be highly, either in its superlative degree, it has to be good enough for us to keep the interest of the customer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, Murali, I think that the time is up for Amit. I do have other panelists with me, but Amit, before I leave you, just give me one answer quickly. What is next big thing in digital that we can expect from SBI in terms of SBI YONO or in digital revolution?
We are taking a next step towards the digital transformation onto a YONO. Please expect analytics driven, a fairly complex kind of a journey, which you think that it is going to take time. It would become a analytics-driven journey which would be completed in 30-second time. Just wait for another 15 days to 20 days. You would be amazed what we are going to offer it to you.
So moving on to a conversation now, Ravi, I would like you to bring here, a very important topic, which is data. And, if you could give me a more sense on the data integration and data virtualization, because most of the banks and specifically the BFSI companies are trying to use and leverage data, to the extent possible. But, there are still many challenges. In many ways, the data is not segregated. In many, parts, the data is not still available. So how do you, suggest, how do you see, this can be integrated in a more seamless manner?
Yeah, so as you kind of mentioned, the data is siloed across multiple different locations. They are in different formats and they have different latency.
Right.
So if you look at the data availability right now, they are residing on the cloud, they're residing on premises, they are on third-party systems. So it's all lying all over the place across hundreds of different systems. And the formats of the data are completely different. You have structured data residing in data warehouses and databases. You have unstructured data that is actually coming from the point of sale systems, either through streaming or from Internet of Things kind of devices. And also the data has different speed components to it, velocity. So you have data in rest that is already residing in your database or data warehouses, whatever systems that you already have. And they're actually coming in a very fast motion from as people are swiping their credit cards or using their payment using the mobile phones. So all this has kind of created the challenge of having disparate data across multiple different places. So the key in order to provide a holistic service is to understand the customer from a complete 360-degree angle, for which you need to integrate the data across all these different sources. If you look at the current condition in which the BFSI companies are trying to provide this, is by artificially stitching them together using very brittle connections. So this is actually creating a lot of challenges for them to be able to be very nimble, be able to be agile, and turn things around very quickly. So what they have also been doing is they have been replicating a lot of the data. Now data lake is a very big concept. So they have been setting up the data lakes, thinking that that's one central place where they can dump all the data in. But that is actually, according to Gartner, only 17% of the companies have actually gone live with the data lakes. So 83% have actually failed or in the process of failing. So it takes an enormous amount of resources and the time and the cost to integrate and deliver the data. And if you look at the current market condition, you will see that the technology spending of public and private companies in India, according to Forrester Research, declined by 5% in 2020. And it will be jumping back into 2021 at a very anemic pace of 1.4%. Consider this, that they had a technology spend of 7.3% in 2019. So, and if you look at the BFSI companies, about 5% of the BFSI companies have actually had their technology spend reduced by about 10% or more. So they are trying to battle all these challenges at a lower cost. So that's where it is very important, Amol, to kind of have what I talked about, the logical data fabric as a way, one, to kind of integrate the data, two, do it at a lower cost with far fewer resources and turn it around much more faster.
I think some important points, Ravi, that you presented. And Suresh, I will come to you. Most of the insurance companies are also using data, AI very aggressively to sell the policies, partnered with many, third-party associations, maybe Flipkart or Swiggy, not only to offer a different experience, but to sell more policies and reach out to more people. My question to you is, Suresh, if you could explain me, how has been the sale? How has been the business? Is it increasing? Because again, we partly discuss this push product and pull product, but do you see that major chunk will come in future, maybe in next 2 to 3 years, specifically from digital selling? It's a pandemic time and people may be interested in typical health insurance policies or those customized policies, but I don't think it's sustainable. The sustainable is when you will actually come back to a normal and sell those corporate policies or motor insurance policies. So if you could give me a perspective here in terms of what is sustainable in terms of digital, how much revenue do you think, how much business will shift on digital going ahead for insurance companies?
First of all, this pandemic has used fear to inculcate some good habits, right? We Indians typically believe that bad can happen to anybody other than me, right? That's how we always lived our lives traditionally. Okay, but the pandemic has thought that, yeah, your neighbor goes down, your family member goes down because of a COVID. So now people are serious, right? They say it's 28 days to a good habit. It's been 8-9 months. I hope the good habit of buying insurance remains in people. I'm not talking of product dumped on customers. I'm talking of genuine need of the customers being met, right? So I hope that it continues, but you're right. There could be a switch back and people can regress back to the old mean of not wanting to buy insurance. But look, what has happened is almost all payments have become digital, right? It's like payment is the first thing that is easiest to target. People now, if you talk to any insurance company, upwards of 95% would be digital transfers. Maybe that last 5% would be still somebody who's still giving you a check for some reason, right? Quotations now are either on the phone or they are WhatsApp to customers or they are email to customers, right? So the IRDA has also consistently brought out regulations that support and ensure that a digital sale can be completed, which is basically OTP based proposal confirmation and stuff like that, right? So what has happened is the ecosystem around you, around the end customer, has changed to be a digital friendly process, right? So while we may regress a little, I think if I take a 5-year view, I think, or maybe in a 3-year view, a substantial portion of the revenue will be digital, right? Yeah, it could come from, for example, if you are tied up with an OEM, like a car manufacturer, a lot of those sales would also come from them. So I'm saying, yeah, you would exclude all of those because those are probably purchases that you make when you buy a vehicle. But if you're going to renew it, it's going to be digital, right? If you're going to be chased up for renewal, that's going to be either a voice assisted bot or a call coming out from a call center or a link coming into you asking you to renew your policy. So I think over the next 3 years, I'd expect that a large portion shifts digital. We would still be physical because there is some portions of it that will still remain physical. But physical would be an afterthought. Digital would be the first thought, is what I think how the things will change over the next 3 years.
Just to add, Amol, to what Suresh had said.
Yes.
Just extend the same thought in terms of digitization. See, in India, before any of us have thought about. One is the Aadhaar enabled, eKYC journey. Second is UPI. If you look at the, many of the customer journeys, so there are two things. One, you should know the customer. So that know your customer or doing the KYC, there is a regulated process or a policy and an opportunity available as part of the other digital KYC, right? And second is 0.0, the limit of the transaction has it actually helps in making a lot more transactions using UPI UPI journey. So these two are, I think, fundamentally both in terms of whether it is banking related customer or any other journey. So these two really have changed the way that we really interact with our customers, right?
Right, Murali. Ravi, whenever we speak about technology, digital usage, and specifically data, the question that I have is about the security, the securitization of data. To add here, how can, maybe BFSI companies can go really, really aggressive in terms of protecting their data? Because, right now, yes, every company is trying hard, but nobody knows how long will it be protected.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So security is of top concern for many of the BFSI firms. And so that actually the security vulnerability comes when the data is actually distributed across multiple different systems. As we talked about, the data is actually resident across the cloud, on-premises, in all these different systems that it actually sits. And from a consumer perspective, when you're trying to integrate all this data and provide it to them, then the vulnerability happens when you need to actually provide the right information to the right set of people. So that's where one of the ways to kind of lock it down is by having an intermediary layer that actually has a central way of getting not only the data in, but also it becomes the central point for enforcing the security. So people at the top level who are consuming the data, you don't know whether they are good or bad. They could be intentionally trying to hack the data or unintentionally making the changes to the original data. So as IT people, we need to make sure that the data has the highest fidelity and it is actually locked down. So by putting something in between and enforcing the security at that particular layer, you do a couple of things. One, you're making sure that any changes that they actually request for the data, it is all locked down at the central place. It is permeated only to the down sources to the extent that they can actually they have the authorization to get the data. And the second thing here is that it becomes the central place to actually determine the access privileges and the policies that these people can actually be enforced at the in this central layer. So which means you do not have to set it up in multiple different applications which have different security policies. You can have a uniform place to set it up once, and that way it can permeate down to the different sources. So that's how you basically do it, and it provides much more flexibility and protection to the BFSI firms.
Thanks, Ravi. Maybe we still have 2-3 minutes left, and I will take this maybe as a second last question to all of you, and try to understand from you, since we discussed how the usage of digital is, how you guys are actually doing the best work in terms of technology. But Suresh, I will start with you. Considering the lessons from the pandemic, we know the value of the digital is going to be really high. In next 2 to 3 quarters, or maybe 1 year to 2 years, how do you see the future of digital in your company? What kind of layers are you going to add digitally in your company?
So as I said, there are a lot of work happening around claim adjudication by using AI and ML. Right? We're talking of fraud detection by using AI and ML. We are talking of chat-assisted sales and chatbot-assisted sales and chatbot-assisted services. Right. So those are some of the few things in the next few quarters that will roll out. Right. I also want to add on to the previous question where we spoke about data security.
Sure.
And what's happening is we are talking of security by design, right? Not security as an afterthought, right? So what happens is we go back and start seeing in the whole flow of data, where all does data flow, where all data doesn't flow. How do we ensure the data when made available is just in time to the right person and is only available for the eyes that is meant to, right? And that big shift is going to, and that's going to give a lot of comfort to many customers to actually trust in us the data, right? So today when you share an Aadhaar to a telco, you do not worry about its abuse. You know that telco has put enough safeguards, right? The same thing happens when you go to a bank, and I'm sure the same thing happens when you go to an insurance company. So what will start happening is over the next few quarters, as we roll out many of these products which are based on an AI ML based platform, right? The customer will have the confidence that, look, my data is safe, and while I'm transacting with a bot, I know it's not put somewhere in the cloud and not going to go out somewhere. It is safe, right? So that's how we are going to guarantee safety in the transaction of the data and power multiple services underlying that. So it's a combination of the two that you would see over the next few quarters.
Okay, thanks, Suresh. Murali, I have seen, at your bank, many things have gone digital. I had a chance to speak with a couple of people from your bank, and they told me you are hiring virtually, right? So a lot of things have already happened there. But considering, the next 1 year target, what are the new things that you see you're going to add?
I think from the DCB bank perspective, the way that we are looking at is, as you already said, many of the services we have already offered, and we are in the process of offering it. Our focus is on two things: bring more and more services which are going to be like a self-service, so that the footfall at the branches can get reduced at the maximum, right? And second is that the new millennial are not going to be coming to the branches for any of the transactions. So this is the two focus areas that we are trying to do it. One is make as many services as possible to be available as self-service options. Second is from an infrastructure or from a data center perspective is using the moving towards a cloud adoption. Because I think while pandemic has started as a big challenge, but I think many of the industry leaders, including us, we are looking at pandemic as an opportunity, right? So every pandemic generally follows with a greater opportunity, for the future thinkers. I think we are looking at this as an opportunity, one, to increase our digital services and digital journey in an exponential way. Of what we have not really thought of in our earlier earlier years. Second, making ourselves agile in such a way that the scale up happens, instant.
Okay, thanks, Murali, for that addition. And Ravi, I would like to take your views also. As you know that most of the BFSI companies, obviously you heard Suresh and Murali, are going to adopt, AI, data, and, trying to go for a self-service mechanism for the BFS, for the customers. Where do you think, the new technologies are going specifically in the BFSI sector? What do you think will be the new technologies that BFSI companies should adopt going ahead in maybe a 1 year or 2 years time?
Pretty much, Suresh and Murali kind of summarized some of those aspects, and in which you talked about as well. So there are two aspects here. One, the consumers are evolving. As Murali talked about, the millennials are getting very comfortable with the technology. They are demanding more from a technology perspective and digital perspective. Yet you see, like from a BFSI service company's perspective, that given the current pandemic, the revenues are being squeezed down, so the budget and the staff are getting squeezed. So you need to be able to innovate at the same time at a lower cost. So that's the challenge that you're facing. So the future is going to be in terms of being able to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to automate a lot of the processes that are manual right now. So you need to be able to pump in productivity, efficiency with fewer people, and to be able to leverage the increase in the demand from a consumer perspective without being able to compromise your budget or be able to demand more from your budget. And the other aspect that Murali talked about is like cloud. So cloud becomes a very central technology. Right now, if you look at from a BFSI perspective, a lot of the expenditure from the IT side goes towards capital expenditure. Cloud provides the ability to shift it from a capital to an operational expenditure. So that way they can actually lower the cost of providing the services, yet they can increase the amount of services. And the last point that Murali basically touched on is the self-service aspect. So the self-service becomes a very key aspect because you don't want to be the central body doing all the work for your consumers. You want to be able to put it out there for them to be able to use it without having to come back to you for every single thing because you become a central point of bottleneck. So that's where, I just want to reiterate the logical data fabric and data virtualization as a core component within that. It enables faster decisions. It enables timely compliance with government regulations, provides the business continuity without any disruption, and provides the data safety that we talked about before. So make sure that it is data is protected and prevented from any unintended or unauthorized use.
All right, gentlemen, very, very insightful and some amazing thoughts. But before I let you go, before I just wrap up, maybe I will take just one small, a little personal question since you all are working from home, maybe slightly going to office, but we are missing the whole world, right? So Ravi, I will start with you. And my question to you is very specific. What are you missing the most in the virtual world?
It is basically the interaction, the physical interaction. So I'm actually a 1,000,000-mile flyer. So every month I travel at least to 2 different destinations around the world. So if you look at me, I haven't actually traveled on a plane for the last 9 months. This is not like me. Okay. So I'm actually missing a large part of that, traveling to the different countries around the world and meeting my team, meeting my customers. So I'm looking forward to the normalcy coming back again next year.
Okay, you're missing the jet lag as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Suresh, what are you missing the most in the virtual world?
Connecting with people. See, business is only about connections.
Right.
And we completely, while we're talking to people on Zoom and phone calls, nothing comes closer to actually meeting people, shaking hands, and solving problems over a cup of coffee, right? So completely missing that aspect of work from home.
Yeah, actually, that's when you sell, life. That's when you sell the policy. When you offer a cup of tea and discuss, a lot can happen over a coffee, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, Murali, it's your time.
No, I think Suresh said it. So the cup of, the conversations were a cup of coffee. That's what is. We are having digital conversations. Right. Longer hours of kind of conversations, but a quick across the table with a cup of coffee is what I guess I'm missing.
Right. That the charm of that aroma is something different, right? Which you cannot inhale in the virtual world. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your amazing views. Thank you so much for taking part into this conversation.
Thank you, Amol, Suresh, Murali.
Bye-bye.
Nice talking.
See you.
Thanks, Amol, for being a good host, and thanks, Ravi and Suresh. Nice talking to you.
Same here, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, panelists, for elaborative discussion. Stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break.